Ignite to impact.
Hi there, and thanks for joining me today. Oh, we got a hot topic going on here. Are you over 55, or are you perhaps unemployed? And by some chance, are you faking normal? Well, if you fall into any of those categories, or maybe one day soon will be 55, and maybe right now are underemployed, or if you've got some concern about whether or not you are really doing everything you can to live your best life, you will enjoy today's conversation. I am just so delighted. I have a good friend of mine, someone who I respect and admire, who's going to join us and talk about that topic, that subject, but it's also the title of her brand new best-selling book, 55, Underemployed and Faking Normal. Don't you want to hear from her? Elizabeth White. And she is an aging solutions advocate. Oh my goodness. So in other words, she knows everything there is to know about aging and gerontology. And she's got answers and advice and practical strategies. And she advocates and speaks up for what it is we want to hear and what it is we should be doing. That's my interpretation of what an aging solutions advocate is. And so she works primarily for older adults facing uncertain work and financial insecurity. Now, this is a big topic, particularly as, I discovered as we get older, the questions and the concerns about our financial stability grow. In fact, particularly if we haven't planned for it. But let me tell you a little bit more about Elizabeth. She's a frequent guest blogger and speaker at conferences and workshops, and has been named one of the top 50 influencers on aging in the country. Her essays and work have appeared in publications like Barron's and Forbes, the Huntington Post, the Washington Post. She's been featured really, you would see her all the time in 3 segments on the PBS NewsHour. And of course, she's done a TED Talk, and it's been elevated to the main TED stage, where she has garnered over 1.9 million views. And so she's also been recently invited to testify before the special Senate Special Committee on Aging. So again, she's seen as a national expert, but interestingly, she started out finding that she could not find a book that met her needs when she had her own experiences with long-term unemployment. And so she wrote it herself. Hey. And so she wrote it as a 65-year-old woman who lived the life in the story she described. She's a Harvard MBA. She's a former entrepreneur. And she also was a C-suite executive who never expected to land where she did. So I just want to bring on my friend, Elizabeth White, to say hello, and let's get going in this fabulous conversation. How are you, Elizabeth? Good to see you. And Tisha Hammond popped in for a moment. Thank you, Tisha, for being with us, for making all of this possible. Tisha Hammond, the small business cheerleader. And Elizabeth, Tisha has been so excited about us having this conversation. How you doing? Oh, we can't. Oh, that's okay. There we go. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So happy to be here. Thank you, Dr. Geneva, for having me. This is a topic close to my heart. I don't study it, as a researcher, this is my own lived experience. That's what landed me here as you described.
Oh my goodness. And that's why I love having someone like you on, because not only do you have, a strong background, you're an expert in many areas like entrepreneurship, your Harvard experience, etc., but it's your real deal life experience. So tell us, what happened in your life that got you to write this book?
So let me tell you. So I'm somebody who was doing really well until I wasn't. Like many of us were doing okay. And the Great Recession hit of 2008. Can you hear me okay? Or should I go to you can hear me. 2008,
no, we can hear.
2008. And all of a sudden, because what happens when there is a retrenchment? The consultants go first. So within 6 months, I lost 2 very good jobs that landed me at zero. Not worried because of the background I have. Harvard, John Hopkins, etc., had worked at the World Bank, etc. And what I noticed in my mid-50s is my phone stopped ringing. I just wasn't getting the traction that I was used to getting. And when you think about it, in your network, they're usually people 10 years older, 10 years younger. So if you're mid-50s, you're now starting the upper end of your network. These are people in their mid-60s. Some were retiring. Some just wanted to ride it out, didn't really want to make waves. Some people had died. I did not have the network that I used to have. Weeks turned into months. And what happened was I started to notice a few friends experiencing what I was experiencing. You're in somebody's SUV and you see they're putting $7 of gas into that vehicle that takes 50. You're with someone and they would normally order a glass of Chardonnay. They're now ordering mineral water, or they're declining invitations. So women talk. So I started talking to women, and there were a number of us who had been high earners, good backgrounds in this place of not getting the kind of work that we were used to getting. So I'm thinking, few friends, not some national phenomena. So at one point, Dr. Geneva, just a place of despair. I was sitting on my grandson's bed, and I just wrote an essay describing what it feels like to land here. The embarrassment of it, the shame of it, the sense that all of a sudden you're looking in on a life that's not yours anymore. You can't afford to do what you used to do. Suddenly, you don't think you're just sort of a tourist in the land of poverty. You might be a permanent resident there. The essay made its way onto the PBS Facebook page. And all of a sudden, thousands and thousands of people were responding, me too. I have the background, I can look at the data. Why are all these people saying, this is me, my husband, my brother, my sister, my best friend? When I looked at the data is when I realized this wasn't just me and a small group of friends. This is millions of people who are in their 50s looking at downward mobility for the first time. So the way you see retirees in the media, you see them, they're on the cruise ship, hair
going having a ball.
They're clinking champagne glasses. This is not the reality for millions of Americans. So we know the expression, when they get a cold, we get pneumonia. And I was saying to Tisha, I was recently working on a paper, and this number jumped out at me. For Black women 60 and older, Our median wealth is $11,000. Wrap your brain around that.
Wow. Yes.
11,000.
Give us that
Wrap
one
your
more
brain.
time.
Wrap your brain around that. And
Yeah.
think, so if you make it to 60 and you're in reasonably good health, you're going to live till 81. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So you have $11,000 in assets and you're going to live until 81. Black women. The bigger also number is the median retirement savings for people 55 to 64 is $60,000. Okay. 55 to 64, $60,000. And you're going to live another 20 years.
Right.
And then the last stat, just so that we can frame our discussion, there's been research now that says half the people, 52% of people who are in their 50s are going to lose their jobs. And only 10% will ever again get a job that is equal in pay and status to the job they left. So when you go to...
I'm writing this down. I'm taking my notes as you're talking because it's incredible.
And so the thing is, all these people didn't suddenly become incompetent. This is where workplace age discrimination is not in your imagination. It's a real thing. So you have a lot of people who are losing their jobs, not getting, so you see the greeter at Walmart and you see, maybe you're now going back to your gym and you see an older person at the front desk of the gym. They may not be in that job because that's the job they want to be in. They may be in that job because that's the only job they could get.
Yes.
So this is where we are. And I think it's a conversation that we're not having. And the last thing I want to say here, it's not a pesky little boomer problem, because Gen Xers are also not going to have pensions. Millennials are not going to have pensions. All are facing this uncertain work. And then if you're a millennial now, there are 1.5 million millennials who are supporting their boomer age parents.
Yes.
So having a conversation, what are we going to do with mom? Mom doesn't have any retirement. Her Social Security is only $800 a month.
Right.
So it's not like, oh, just, those older boomers, that's on them. This is a conversation we should be having nationally.
And across the age spectrum. That's what I hear you saying.
Yes.
Elizabeth, so let me just say good morning to Michelle and Marionette and all of you who are joining us live for this, really eye-opening conversation. So Elizabeth, you dropped a number of stats on us dealing with, particularly where Black women are, but also in terms of the age spectrum, millennials, Gen Xers, and why folks should be interested in this topic. So so you talked about, you wrote an essay, it picked up in terms of interest. You found out that you were not alone. And so that led you into your book. So and then I want you to just give us a story or two out of your book, because I want folk to know how I got connected with Elizabeth. Although I had heard about her a couple of years ago, but I really connected with her on Clubhouse.
Yes.
When a room was hosted to showcase her book. And I was just enthralled and, just by all of the conversation, but particularly the stories that she would tell. So I definitely want you to, leave us at least with one or two stories. But I also want to say good morning to Josephine and Karen. And Karen, I'm so glad you're here too. It's good to see you, and glad you're joining the conversation. So Elizabeth, tell us the aha moment that got you into writing this book. I know you found and heard there were lots of folk who were saying me too. But what got you to say, hey, I'm going to write this book, and also share with us a story?
So what happened is when people respond as they did to my essay, so you get a bunch of comments, thousands of these comments, they write a few sentences. But this is what happens today. They are going to find your email address. So I started to get emails that were a page and a half single space, where people were really having a chance to tell me their stories. So beyond like 2-3 sentences in a comment, they would share what was really happening to them. Then someone would tell me, I live in DC. They're saying, I'm going to be in DC. Do you want to meet for coffee? And then I would meet them for coffee. And so I started to know more people who had landed here outside of my friendship circle. And I started to get all these emails with stories, people sharing with me about what had happened to them, different aspects. And then also what they were doing to cope. So women who were living together, or people who were living in a tiny house, or someone who had some sort of side hustle, or someone who, they had to get off their throne and think about how they were living differently than they had before. So as these stories and people started to come into my life, I thought, there's enough here to maybe write about this, because this is what I found when I was looking for something to read myself. There was a lot written for academics.
Okay.
There was a lot written for like policymakers. There was a lot written if you were in a think tank. There was a lot on the technical side of what kind of retirement plan would people who are now in their 20s need, but there wasn't anything, there's no survival manual. If you land here, this is your situation. You are in your 50s and 60s and you are here. Nobody was talking to us about what's happening in the meantime. It was all like, how do we save 20-year-olds from this situation?
Okay.
That's important. That's important.
So no everyday real-time strategies and advice that you could use to get out of the situation, or in fact, think about how to plan for it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And how to, because there's some hard realities here. Okay. One of the hard realities is our government is not really focused on this yet. So there's no what I would call safety net for older adults. Okay. There's our Social Security, but a lot of people in their 50s aren't even eligible yet for Social Security. So we're not having the conversation. So then I started looking for people who were, I say, making their way by walking. Okay. Just my battery here. Just hold on.
No problem. So I definitely want to, as you're getting ready to tell us about that, you're starting to look. Give us an idea of what, as you talk to all these folk, what were the one or two biggest challenges that people said they were facing?
So there's a mental piece to this. Okay. The mental piece is we live in a culture where your bootstrap ingenuity is supposed to be able to pull you out of any situation. And we don't look at systemic factors that contribute to millions of people landing here. So since we're not talking about it, so many of the people who approached me felt they had personally failed. They were personally losers. Something was wrong with them. Their families didn't understand. The faking normal is about hiding and pretending you're okay when you're not okay because it's embarrassing to land here. So there are a lot of people, men in particular, because men don't often don't talk to each other at this level. Women, we often have a good girlfriend or a couple of girlfriends that we can really tell the truth to. And then white men in particular, because for white men, ageism is often the first ism they've ever experienced. We've experienced racism, sexism. Now here's ageism. It's a practice. But for a white man who now for the first time on sight, because they look older, people have a lot of opinions about their capacity and capability that they've never experienced. So some of the men, white men in particular, who spoke to me, this was like unbelievable, particularly if they had been at the top of their game. And then because of ageism had gotten downsized and outsized and furloughed and all that. And now people were not returning their phone calls. And the White House used to return their phone calls, really struggling, really on the mind trip.
And so this aspect of faking normal, I mean, that is just so fascinating. It's almost like, this imposter syndrome in aging, where they're, faking what really is happening. And I hear you saying that for many folks, this is the first time they're experiencing something like this. And then for others, they're blaming themselves or trying to find the fault in being in this position at this point in time.
Yes. And here's what I would say. This is so widespread that everybody who is listening right now knows somebody who's landed here. And what I realize, I have some shame that's related to people in my circle who landed here before I did, that I wasn't paying attention. I didn't look deeply at when they started to decline invitations. I didn't look, because the fake can be really good. And here's the problem when your fake is really good. I'm thinking of one friend. We're never invited to her home anymore. You can drop her off and say, could I run up and go to the bathroom? And she'll have some reason you can't go. There are all kinds of ways, because they're embarrassed about the carpet. There's a hole in the ceiling. They haven't, all of that. So they don't want you in their space. So that embarrassment, because we think it is all related to us. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't have saved more. If you rifle through anybody's background, there are going to be mistakes.
Absolutely.
When you have so many who have landed here, so many, that's when you realize there's some systemic things that are happening.
Right. And
And
and you know, it just no, I was just saying that the so when you said if you're listening, you probably know somebody who's in this situation. And like we're saying, over 55, underemployed, faking normal, as you describe it, I was thinking, yeah, that's true. And so, what do you see? So, let's see if we can talk about some of the solution strategies. You are an aging solutions advocate. And hey, Beatrice, oh my goodness, how are you? Beatrice is one of my dear friends from Africa who joined us today. Hi, Beatrice. And I would love to know, are you seeing, in your country and who you are you seeing this situation that we're talking about today? That is being in your 50s and 60s and not living the life that you did before financially. And, and then this underemployment aspect that you talk about, Elizabeth. So let's get into some of the solutions or strategies that you see that if we find ourselves in this position or we know of others, what are folk doing?
So where I like to start is exactly where we started, is one, understanding that we're not alone. Okay.
Yes.
So we've kind of covered that.
Yes.
Here's what I had to do and many others had to do. One of the things I had to do was to get off my throne. What do I mean when I say get off my throne? Okay.
Now I want to hear this because you are a queen.
Okay.
Okay. We'll always
you
be
see the
queen.
crown here. You see
and
it.
we always will be queen. But let's hear about this getting off the throne.
Okay. So this is what this meant.
Okay.
You've been in the world living a certain way. You've been making certain money. You've been buying what you want.
Okay.
You now have been unemployed for a long time. Okay. And you get an interview and they actually make you an offer. The offer is a third of what you used to make.
Okay.
A third of what you used to make.
Okay.
You can't believe that this is the offer that you're getting. Okay. But you need this money, but you have all kinds of feelings about the whole situation.
Right.
So I'm going to one of my good girlfriends and she says, get off your throne, money's green. Okay.
Okay.
She then asked me, what are the non-dollar benefits to taking this job? The non-dollar benefit didn't pay a lot, but they actually wanted me to go around to different communities and talk about this issue. Okay. Now, that's a big benefit because this is the topic that I'm interested in. So many people told me, I tell a story in the TED Talk where a friend of mine wanted me to help her with some organizing work. I'm thinking kind of organizing work President Obama did in Chicago. She meant organizing somebody's closet. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And she's saying, get off your throne, money is green. Okay.
And Beatrice is agreeing with you that in the 50s and 60s, it is tough because a lot of folk in that age, particularly women, are in fact out of a job.
Right.
And what you're saying is, I'm hearing the, get over yourself. Maybe it's a time for a new career, a new experience, but it ain't like it was before.
And I put it this way: think strategy, not failure.
Okay.
Because what happens in this situation is the tape starts running through your head. You're a loser. You just okay.
Right.
So I say, think strategy, not failure. What do I mean when I say that? Think about what you need to do to survive this period that you're in right now. Okay.
Yes.
If you need to get food stamps, get those food stamps. There's some, of people in our age group, there are some 40% who would be eligible who don't get them. The first time I landed here, had to get food stamps. The first time I used that card, I drove way across town
to some place where nobody knew your name, right?
And I'm, trying to decide, I'm going to push the cart. I get there, the cashier is not even paying me no mind at all. Doesn't pay attention, could care less.
Probably wondering where their food stamps, where they put their food stamps, right?
And, so all of this in your brain that you go through.
That's faking normal.
The faking normal. So the National Council on Aging has something they call a checkup. You can go to their website, and any program that you would be eligible, you put your name in and your situation, they'll tell you about any program in the country that you may be eligible for. So there was a program in DC where if you were on unemployment, you could also get support then for your mortgage payment.
Yes.
And there was another program, I think it was called Safe Home, where like a good friend of mine needed what's that when you sit in and it takes you up the stairs?
Yes, the lift.
The lift.
Yes.
And she qualified for that because of some health issues. And that was something that the city did for free. So what the checkup on the National Council on Aging will help you to identify what sort of resources are available. Because this is what you have to think about when you're thinking strategy, not failure. Secure yourself. You've paid into the system. And so that the benefits that are there that can maybe help you through this, you need to do that. Because here's the challenge of faking normal. If your fake is really good, and let's say you need some affordable housing, and I actually know of a place, but since you don't present like you need affordable housing, your fake is so good, I'm not going to even know to tell you about the housing or the job or the, some opportunity.
Because it seems like you're doing real good. You're faking it good.
You are faking it good. So a friend of mine who's a minister said to me once, God works through people. If you don't let other people know what's happening to you, then that opportunity that has your name on it, right now,
it's going to pass you by.
You're going to pass the people who know, they're not going to even know to tell you.
So let me say good morning to Montez Miller, my dear, dear friend. And as Montez is saying, yes, let's talk about what we need to do to survive. And oftentimes putting that pride to the side is what you were talking about, I think, in terms of getting off that throne for a moment and, really stepping into perhaps something different, a different world. And Beatrice raises an interesting point. I want to make sure that we get into about this planning and we should, think about developing our passions and reaching out to people, doing things, going back to school. So part of your book talks about underemployed. I know in our conversations, you've talked about the gig economy. And I know that one of the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs are women, particularly Black women who are starting their own businesses, doing their own thing. So what would what to do?
So I lost you for a little bit there.
Okay.
So
Women who, if women who find themselves underemployed or not employed, what should they do?
So at this point, I think in terms of a casserole of work. Okay.
Okay.
I think I'm 67 now. I think it is unlikely, just sort of being real here, that I will ever be in a 9 to 5 job, my feet under somebody's desk every day. So I think of, and many people in this situation think of 2, 3 jobs that they might cobble together.
Right.
So you
different
might
streams of income.
different streams of income. So you may be an instructor at a community college. That's one stream. You may be doing a little bit of Airbnb. You're empty nester. You got a spare room that, someone can live there. You may be doing a little bit of consulting, or, I do a little bit of speaking. I've met women who are kind of in various parts of the gig economy on Fiverr, etc. So it is, and none of these are perfect. You're going to be like, I don't like this. I don't want to do it, but it's where we are. And I think that, I was saying earlier, all this individual, everybody needs their own lawnmower. We are, particularly as women, going to need to start coming together. And I think you're starting to see now in different metropolitan areas, they call it the Golden Girls Act legislation, where they are encouraging people to live together Golden Girl style, to deal one with loneliness, which is the epidemic of many older adults feeling isolated, and then to deal with the affordability issue. So in some places, they'll even help with the renovation or the upgrading of a space so that those older adults in there are safe.
Yes.
If you look up Golden Girl, so I'm seeing this pop up in different places.
Yeah.
Because
this collaboration that comes in different forms.
Right. A friend of mine needed to move she was on the ground floor in an apartment she could no longer afford, to an upper floor. She didn't have the money to call ABC Moving Company. Okay. She got all her girlfriends, so a few male relatives. She bought pizza and drinks.
Right.
We walked the stuff up and down the elevator. Now, so we're used to helping each other in sort of polite ways, kind of just, we are going to need more help from each other. And so that request, which took all day moving her up there, but that's what we're going to have to do as friends to each other.
And it's I was just thinking that what you're really crafting out is this reimagining what a life would look like that maybe we didn't think about initially.
It's exactly that.
And I think your conversation, your advocacy, your book just really helps set the stage for that, and to get that kind of thinking going on. You've identified, we're not having that kind of conversation, and we should. We're not putting out these new ideas, as Josephine is applauding the idea of golden girl living, and having these kinds of conversations at any age. But there's things that we can plan for at a younger age as well. And you stimulating this kind of conversation, I think is fantastic. Well, Elizabeth, as we're winding down the segment, of course, I could just be talking to you for a while. And I want you to know that Elizabeth has agreed. We're going to do some more of this. In fact, we're going to record a podcast, and we're going to dive in a little deeper into the subject if you're interested. So stay with Ignite to Impact live and recorded. Okay. But Elizabeth, I wanted to, if there was one gem, one piece of advice that you could say to our listeners who are here with us on the live and those joining us on the replay about aging and this subject of being in their 50s and 60s, perhaps not employed where you used to be, or underemployed or out of work, and you faking normal. What gem, what piece, another gem, but what advice would you like to leave us with?
So there's sort of, I'm going to say two things.
Okay.
The first thing is to really understand that we have not been here before. We have not been here where we are living as long as we're living. So back in 1965, when the Older Americans Act, that's our main policy for aging adults in this country. In 1965, life expectancy was 70. So you made it to 65, you had 5 more years. Okay, now we got 20. The reason this is so crazy making, it's not you. We haven't been here before. We are making our path by walking. They're not role models yet. There's not supportive legislation yet. There are no rules yet. We are making it up. So if you're feeling like, that's how we're supposed to feel, because we're the ones who are at the forefront of this, the first people up the hill, first people living this long, first people with, who are living this long and now don't have pensions and the money, etc.
Okay.
That.
Okay.
The second thing I want to say, particularly to women, is I want them, this is something I'd like that you and I could also collaborate on. I am developing now a workshop for us to actually gather women together, for us to talk about these issues and to come out of there with our own personal roadmap. Because everybody's situation is a little different. Yes. Some have more family members, some have more friends, some are willing. I think there was one of your listeners who talked about opportunities to go back for training, etc. I'd like to have a safe forum where we can have these conversations and share resources and information.
Fantastic. Oh my gosh. I love it. And as Dr. Cynthia reminds us that, as we go through this journey, as we have these conversations, it really is helping us be the role models and teaching young people so that they can be proactive as well. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for that insightful comment. And let me first say, Elizabeth, yes. Let's collaborate on that workshop, because I absolutely believe in each one of us having a personal action plan. That is something that, charts out what it is we want to do in our own way, in our own shape, in our own form, but that we need to really be very intentional about thinking about how we want to design our life. And we can and should do it at different stages of our life. So anyone listening to our conversation, no matter where you are on the age spectrum, this could be something for you. Yeah. I also appreciate, Elizabeth, how you really are helping us kind of take a deep breath and lessen the anxiety about, about even the whole thing about faking normal, because what you're saying to us, what you're helping us remember, is that we the first ones here. We haven't been here before. We are the ones to figure it out.
Right.
And so it's okay to be having these feelings of anxiety and worry. But what we must do is we can't be the only ones figuring out in 10 to 20, 30 years from now, people be having the same kind of conversation. Right. That in fact, we need to lead the way. And I do believe that, we are role models for that.
And this is what I was hoping with my book. I wanted my book to feel like I'm sitting next to you and we're having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee.
Yes.
You are reading in the pages about yourself, and it feels real to you. And I had a friend who said to me, "This better not be a talkathon. This book better have some solutions in it."
Yes.
I really worked hard. So there are like over 100 online resources, all the things that people told me about, because there was nothing for me when I landed here. So I said, I'm going to try what's out there to pull that together.
We got that. And how can people get it? How can people get your book?
So there are different ways. One, of course, it's on Amazon.
That's right. But that's how I got mine.
The book is also in libraries, or your library can get it. And the reason I did that is talking to many people. I know there are folks who $15 is too much right now.
Right.
It's too much.
So you can go to your library, your local library.
Go to your local library, or you get it on Amazon. A number of independent bookstores, if you want to get it that way. My favorite here in DC, Mahogany Books, Black-owned Mahogany.
All right, I know Mahogany Books well. Yes, absolutely.
Get it from them.
Yes, she's wonderful. Yes.
Ramunda.
Yes. Well, I want, the book is phenomenal. We want you to get it, but we don't want to end our conversation. So we'll be doing more and more about this. And I just really love the whole approach to personal action plan. I do have, and for those of you who, love this conversation, want to get more of it, follow us, follow me. We will be coming to you with more and more of this kind of what I think is very rich content. So I want to thank Elizabeth White for being here. And Elizabeth, don't go away, because we're going to do some more recording. But for this segment, we want to thank you for being with us. And the one thing I disagree with, in terms of, you are a queen on a throne. I get what it is that you were talking about, right? Like Montez Miller reminded us that, we got to do our thing and put pride to the side, but you are queen. And thank you, queen.
Thank you so much
today. Thank you. And so to all of you listeners now and watching the replay, I told you this was going to be a great conversation. Listen, I want you to know that one of my gifts for you is 15 strategies that you ought to know if you're a woman over 50. Now, you need to get this. It's free. You can go to my website. I want you to go to my website for two reasons. One, I want you to get this ebook that I got. 15 strategies you ought to know. You need to be picking that up. So I want you to go do that. But the main reason why I'd love for you to go and check out this free gift for you is because you'd also become a subscriber to my email list. And every week we drop in content that you want to hear, content that's important, content that shows you how to look good, feel good and do good at any age and help you create that life that you know you want, you know you can get, you know is there for you. So I'd love for you to join us. Hey, this kind of content, bringing Ignite to Impact live, had always been a dream for me. And so I love the fact, but what makes it really cool is that because you're on this journey with me. I love it. Thank you, Cynthia and Marionette and Josephine and Beatrice and Montez and all of you who've joined today. And for those who are on the replay that I'll see later, thank you so much. Love you and just live it.
Ignite to Impact.